With his family gone, a widowed father entered an abandoned resort containing $275 million. Before we dive into the story, make sure to smash subscribe because tomorrow we have an extra special story for you that will blow your mind. The mountains of Colorado held onto winter longer than anywhere else Marcus had ever lived. Even now, in late March, frost still clung to the pines like stubborn memory, and the air bit cold enough to make his knuckles ache when he worked outside. He stood in the driveway of the small rental house on Maple Street, hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets, watching his breath curl into the gray morning sky. The house behind him was quiet. Too quiet. It had been that way for 3 years now, ever since Sarah died. 3 years since cancer took his wife and left him with 2 kids, a mountain of medical debt, and a silence so heavy it pressed against his chest every single morning. Marcus turned back toward the house. Through the kitchen window, he could see his daughter Riley moving around inside, probably making breakfast for her younger brother. She was 12 but carried herself like someone far older, like someone who understood that childhood had ended the day her mother's heartbeat stopped. Owen, only 8, still believed in magic, still thought Dad could fix anything. Marcus wished that were true. He walked back inside, the screen door creaking behind him. The smell of burnt toast filled the kitchen. Riley stood at the counter, scraping black char into the sink, her dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. "Morning, Dad," she said without looking up. "Morning, sweetheart." Marcus poured himself coffee from the pot she'd already made. The cup was chipped at the rim. Everything in this house was chipped, cracked, or held together with hope and duct tape. Owen shuffled in wearing mismatched socks and a shirt 2 sizes too big, probably one of Marcus's old ones. "Dad, can we get pancakes today?" Marcus knelt down and ruffled his son's hair. "Not today, buddy, but I'll make you eggs. Scrambled, just how you like them." Owen's face fell just slightly, but he nodded. He was learning not to ask for things. That broke Marcus's heart more than anything. After breakfast, after Riley caught the school bus and Owen climbed into the neighbor's van for his carpool, Marcus sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at a stack of bills. Rent due in 5 days, electricity overdue. The truck needed new brakes. His toolbox was missing half the tools he needed for the contracting jobs he scraped together, and his phone hadn't rung with work in over a week. He pressed his palms against his eyes and exhaled slowly. Sarah used to sit across from him at this table. She used to say, "We'll figure it out, Marcus. We always do." But there was no we anymore. Just him. Just the weight of it all pressing down like an avalanche he couldn't outrun. His phone buzzed. A text from his buddy Carter, who worked at the county clerk's office. "Auction today at 2. Old Pinecrest Lodge. Might be worth a look. Starting bid is crazy low." Marcus stared at the message. Pinecrest Lodge. He knew the place. Everyone in town knew it. The massive ski resort that had been abandoned since the early 1990s, sitting up in the hills like a ghost, windows dark, gates chained. Locals said it was cursed. Said the original owner had vanished without a trace, and the place had been rotting ever since. Nobody wanted to touch it. But Marcus had driven past it a few times over the years. The structure was solid, stone and timber built to last. If the bones were good, maybe he could do something with it. Rent out rooms, start small, build something. He texted Carter back. "How low is the starting bid?" The reply came fast. $750, no joke." Marcus sat back in his chair. $750. That was less than he paid in rent. That was nothing. It had to be a scam, or a trap, or both. But what if it wasn't? By 1:30 that afternoon, Marcus was sitting in his truck outside the county courthouse, hands gripping the steering wheel. He had $600 to his name. It was supposed to cover groceries and gas for the next 2 weeks. But if he could win that property for $750, if he could make something out of it, Maybe his kids wouldn't have to keep eating burnt toast and wearing hand-me-downs. Maybe he could give them something solid, something that lasted. He climbed out of the truck and walked inside. The auction room was smaller than he expected, just a few folding chairs and a clerk behind a podium. Only 4 other people sat scattered around the room. Nobody looked excited. Nobody looked like they were about to bid on anything. Marcus took a seat in the back. At exactly 2 o'clock, the clerk tapped the microphone. "Afternoon, folks. We've got one item today. The property known as Pinecrest Lodge and surrounding 12 acres. The county's selling it as is. No inspections, no guarantees. Starting bid is $750. Silence. Marcus glanced around. Nobody moved. The clerk repeated, $750. Do I have $750? More silence. Then a man in the front row, older, wearing a faded flannel shirt, raised his hand. $750. The clerk nodded. $750. Do I have $800? Nothing. Marcus's heart pounded. This was real. This was actually happening. Going once at $750, the clerk said. Marcus's hand shot up. $800. The room turned. The older man glanced back at him, then shook his head and stayed quiet. The clerk pointed at Marcus. $800. Do I have $850? Silence stretched out like wire pulled tight. Going once, going twice. The gavel came down. Sold for $800 to bidder number 12. Marcus sat frozen. He'd just bought a 12-acre resort for $800. The clerk motioned him forward. Marcus stood on shaky legs and walked to the front. He signed the paperwork, his hand trembling slightly. The clerk handed him a thick envelope. Keys are inside. Deed'll be mailed within 30 days. Property's yours as of today. Good luck. Marcus took the envelope and walked out into the cold afternoon air. He stood on the courthouse steps, staring down at the yellowed keys in his palm. They were heavy, old, the kind of keys that opened things people had forgotten about. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so he did neither. He just got in his truck and drove. Pinecrest Lodge sat at the end of a winding dirt road, hidden behind a wall of pines and overgrown brush. The iron gates at the entrance were chained shut, rusted at the hinges. Marcus parked the truck and climbed out. The air smelled like pine sap and old snow. He walked up to the gates and pulled the chain loose. It fell away easier than he expected, like it had been waiting. The gates groaned open. He drove through slowly, tires crunching over gravel and weeds, and then he saw it. The main lodge rose up from the hillside like something out of a forgotten postcard. Stone walls 3 stories high, timber beams dark with age, a wraparound porch sagging in places but still intact. Massive windows, some cracked, most just dusty, and beyond it, smaller cabins scattered through the trees like sleeping children. It was huge. It was broken. And it was his. Marcus parked in front of the main entrance and stepped out. The silence was absolute. No birds, no wind. Just the weight of decades pressing down on stone and wood. He walked up the steps to the front door. The wood was warped but solid. He tried the first key. It didn't fit. Tried the second. It slid in smoothly and turned with a heavy click. The door swung open. The smell hit him first. Not rot, not mold, just dust. Thick, undisturbed dust that coated every surface like snow. Marcus stepped inside and his boots echoed on the hardwood floor. The lobby stretched out before him, massive and dim. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, big enough to stand inside. A chandelier hung from the ceiling, crystals dulled but unbroken. Furniture sat covered in white sheets, ghostly and still. He walked deeper into the space, his flashlight cutting through the shadows. The place was frozen, like someone had walked out mid-shift and never came back. The front desk still had a guest ledger open. Marcus flipped through it. The last entry was dated November 14th, 1992. He moved through the main floor, checking doors, testing light switches. Nothing. No power. But when he found the breaker panel in a back hallway, he flipped the main switch. Somewhere deep in the building, something hummed to life. Lights flickered. Half of them stayed dark, but half came on. He had power. Marcus exhaled slowly. This place wasn't just abandoned. It was waiting. He climbed the stairs to the second floor. Guest rooms lined the hallway, doors closed, keys still in the locks. He opened one. A bed with the covers still tucked, a nightstand with a lamp, a window overlooking the mountains, untouched. He checked another room. Same thing. It was like the place had been preserved under glass. On the third floor, Marcus found the manager's office. The door was different from the others. Heavier, reinforced. A deadbolt and a keyhole that looked newer than the rest of the building. He tried every key on the ring. None of them fit. He made a mental note to come back with a locksmith. But as he turned to leave, he noticed something. On the wall across from the office, a framed painting of the mountains hung slightly crooked. Marcus walked over and straightened it. Behind it, the wall looked different. He tapped it. Hollow. His pulse quickened. He pulled the painting down and set it on the floor. Behind it was a small safe built into the wall. Old but well made. Combination lock. No key. Marcus crouched down and studied it. The metal was clean. No rust. Someone had maintained this. Recently. He ran his fingers along the edges, then stood back. This wasn't random. Someone had put this here for a reason, and someone had kept it protected. He pulled out his phone and took a picture. Then he walked back downstairs, his mind racing. By the time Marcus picked up Owen from the neighbor's house and Riley from her friend's place, the sun was starting to sink behind the mountains. They piled into the truck, both of them chattering about their day, and Marcus tried to listen. But his thoughts kept circling back to the resort, to the locked office, to the safe behind the painting. "Dad," Riley's voice cut through. "You okay?" He glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Yes, sweetheart. Just had a long day." "Did you find work?" Marcus hesitated. "Something like that." Owen leaned forward from the back seat. "Can we get burgers?" "Not tonight, buddy, but I'll make spaghetti when we get home." Riley caught his eye in the mirror. She knew something was up. She always knew. After dinner, after Owen went to bed clutching his stuffed bear, Riley sat across from Marcus at the kitchen table. "What's going on?" she asked. Marcus sighed. There was no hiding things from her. Not anymore. "I bought something today." "Bought what?" "A property, an old resort up in the hills." Her eyes widened. "The creepy one? Pinecrest?" "It's not creepy. It's just old." "Everyone says it's haunted, Dad." Marcus smiled faintly. "Ghosts don't pay rent, Riley. But if I can fix the place up, rent out some rooms, maybe we can stop worrying about bills every month." She studied him for a long moment. "How much did it cost?" $800. Her mouth fell open. "That's it?" "That's it." She leaned back in her chair. "Then why didn't anyone else buy it?" That was the question, wasn't it? The next morning, Marcus dropped the kids at school and drove straight back to Pinecrest. He'd barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that safe, saw the locked office. Something was buried in this place, something people had walked away from. And now it was his. He parked and went straight to the third floor. The manager's office door still wouldn't budge. He'd have to drill it. But first, he wanted another look at that safe. He pulled the painting down again and studied the combination lock. It was a standard 5-number dial. He tried a few random combinations. Nothing. Then he remembered the guest ledger. The last date. November 14th, 1992. He spun the dial. 1, 1, 1, 4, 9, 2. Nothing. He tried it backward. 2, 9, 4, 1, 1. Click. The safe door swung open. Marcus's hands trembled as he reached inside. There were papers, old blueprints. He pulled them out carefully and spread them on the floor. They were architectural plans for the resort, but not the version he'd seen. These showed spaces that didn't exist, hidden rooms, a basement level that wasn't on any official record. He traced the lines with his finger. Beneath the main lodge, accessible through a stairwell behind the kitchen, was a large rectangular space labeled simply Storage Vault. Marcus stood up, heart pounding. He folded the blueprints and tucked them under his arm. Then he went downstairs. The kitchen was massive, industrial, built to serve hundreds of guests. Stainless steel counters covered in dust, ovens cold and dark, walk-in freezers sealed shut. Marcus walked the perimeter, studying the walls. On the far side, behind a rack of pots and pans, he found it. A door, painted the same color as the wall, easy to miss. He pulled the rack aside and tried the handle. Locked. He pulled out his pry bar and wedged it into the frame. The wood splintered. The door swung open. A stairwell descended into darkness. Marcus clicked on his flashlight and stepped down carefully. The stairs were concrete, solid, newer than the rest of the building. At the bottom, another door. This one wasn't locked. It opened with a soft groan. The room beyond was enormous. 20 feet wide, 30 feet long, ceiling low and supported by thick beams. And it was empty. Completely empty. Except for one thing. In the center of the room sat a metal storage container, the kind used for shipping, 8 feet long, 4 feet wide, padlocked. Marcus approached it slowly. The lock was heavy duty. He'd need bolt cutters. He walked around it, checking for markings. On one side, stenciled in faded white paint, were the words, "Private property, authorized personnel only." His pulse hammered in his ears. He took pictures of everything. Then he went back upstairs. That night, Marcus couldn't focus. He made dinner, helped Owen with homework, listened to Riley talk about her science project, but his mind was 1,000 miles away, deep underground, standing in front of that shipping container. After the kids went to bed, he sat on the porch with a beer he wasn't drinking and called Carter. "Hey man, you busy?" "Not really. What's up?" "I need you to pull some records for me, about Pinecrest Lodge." Carter paused. "You actually bought that place?" "Yeah." "Marcus, that place has a history." "What kind of history?" Carter sighed. "The guy who owned it, his name was Victor, ran the resort through the 80s. It was doing great, apparently. Packed every winter. Then in 92, the feds started sniffing around. Rumors were Victor had connections, organized crime stuff, money laundering. They were building a case. What happened? Victor disappeared, just vanished. The resort shut down overnight. Feds came in, tore the place apart, found nothing. Case went cold. Property sat in legal limbo for decades until the county finally seized it for unpaid taxes. Marcus gripped the phone tighter. "So the feds never found anything?" "Nope, and they looked everywhere." "Maybe they didn't look hard enough." Carter went quiet. "Marcus, if you found something, you need to be careful. People don't hide things unless they're dangerous." "I know. I'm serious, man. You've got kids." "I know," Marcus said again. "Thanks, Carter." He hung up. The next morning, Marcus went to the hardware store and bought the biggest bolt cutters they had. He drove back to the resort, parked, and went straight to the basement. His hands shook as he positioned the cutters on the padlock. It took 3 tries, but the lock snapped. He pulled it free and opened the container. Inside were boxes, dozens of them, stacked neatly, wrapped in plastic. He pulled one out and tore the plastic open. Cash, stacks of $100 bills, banded and pristine. He opened another box. More cash, then another, gold bars, small, heavy, stamped with dates from the 1980s. Another box held diamonds, loose stones in velvet pouches, bearer bonds, rare coins, documentation, receipts, ledgers. Marcus sank to his knees, the flashlight trembling in his hand. He didn't know how much was here. He couldn't even begin to guess. But it was millions, tens of millions. maybe more. He sat there in the dark, surrounded by a fortune that wasn't supposed to exist, and felt the weight of it settle over him like a storm he couldn't outrun. This wasn't just money. This was evidence. This was danger. This was a secret that had been buried for 30 years, and he'd just dug it up. His phone buzzed. A text from Riley. "Dad, when are you coming home?" Marcus stared at the screen. Then he looked back at the boxes. He thought of Sarah, of what she would say, of the medical bills that had crushed them, of the life insurance that hadn't been enough, of the nights he'd lain awake wondering how to give his kids a future. And now, here it was, a future. Buried in a basement, wrapped in plastic, soaked in blood. He didn't know what to do. So he closed the container, locked it again, and walked back upstairs into the light. What happens next will turn this discovery into a dangerous game, reveal the ghosts still hunting this fortune, and test just how far one father will go to protect his children. Stay tuned to see what happens next. If you're enjoying the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more. Marcus drove home in silence, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. The world outside the truck felt surreal, too bright, too normal. He'd just found more money than most people earned in 10 lifetimes, and he was driving a truck with a cracked windshield and squealing brakes. When he pulled into the driveway, Riley was sitting on the porch steps, backpack beside her, waiting. She stood up as he climbed out. "You're late," she said. "I know. I'm sorry." She studied his face. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." "Dad." He walked up the steps and sat down beside her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Riley said quietly, "You found something, didn't you?" Marcus looked at her. She was too smart, too aware. She'd grown up fast, watching her mother fade, watching her father struggle. She deserved better than lies. "Yeah," he said. "I found something." "Is it bad?" "I don't know yet." She leaned against his shoulder. "Whatever it is, we'll figure it out. That's what Mom used to say." Marcus wrapped his arm around her and closed his eyes. "Yeah," he whispered. "That's what she used to say." That night, after dinner, after Owen had fallen asleep on the couch watching cartoons, Marcus sat alone in the small office he'd set up in the corner of the living room. He spread the blueprints out on the desk and studied them under the lamp. The hidden basement, the vault, the shipping container. Everything had been planned, designed, hidden with precision. Victor hadn't just stumbled into this. He'd built the resort with secrets already in mind. Marcus pulled up his laptop and started searching. He typed in Victor's full name from the old property records. Dozens of articles popped up. Ski resort mogul under federal investigation. Pinecrest Lodge owner linked to organized crime. Resort mysteriously closes, owner vanishes. He clicked through them, reading carefully. Victor had been smart, charming, well-connected. The resort had been a front, a place to wash dirty money. The feds had known. They'd been building a case for months. But the night before the raid, Victor disappeared. No body, no trace, just gone. And the money went with him. Except it didn't. It was still there, waiting. Marcus leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. If he reported this, the feds would seize everything. He'd get nothing. Maybe a small finder's fee if he was lucky. The debts would stay, the struggle would continue. But if he kept it, if he stayed quiet, he could change everything. Pay off the medical bills, buy a real house, send his kids to college, give them the life Sarah had wanted for them. But keeping it meant lying, hiding, looking over his shoulder, and it meant accepting that this money came from somewhere dark, somewhere dangerous. The next morning, Marcus made breakfast and got the kids ready for school. Everything felt normal, routine, but inside his mind was spinning. As he drove Riley to the bus stop, she turned to him. "Dad, are you going to sell the resort?" "I don't know yet." "What if you fixed it up? Made it nice again? He glanced at her. You think people would come? I think people like places with stories, even scary ones. Marcus smiled faintly. Maybe you're right. After he dropped Owen at school, he didn't go back to the resort. Instead, he drove to the public library. He needed answers. He needed to understand what he was dealing with. In the back corner of the library, he found the microfiche archives. He loaded reels from 1992 and scrolled through local newspapers. There, November 15th, 1992. Pinecrest Lodge closed indefinitely. Owner missing. He read the article carefully. Victor had been 53, married, no children. His wife had reported him missing the morning of November 14th, the same day the feds were planning their raid. She claimed he'd gone for a morning hike and never came back. Search parties found nothing. His car was still in the garage, his wallet still in the house. He'd vanished like smoke. Marcus kept scrolling. A week later, another article. Federal investigation stalls as evidence disappears. The feds had searched the resort top to bottom, seized financial records, interviewed staff, found nothing conclusive. The case went cold within months. Victor's wife moved away. The resort sat empty, and the truth stayed buried. Marcus printed the articles and stuffed them in his jacket. He drove to a coffee shop across town and sat in the back corner with his laptop. He needed to know how much was in that container. He pulled up a currency calculator and started estimating. If each box held 100,000 in cash and there were at least 50 boxes, that was 5 million. But there were more than 50, maybe 100, maybe more. And that didn't count the gold, the diamonds, the bonds. He sat back feeling sick. This was real. This was overwhelming. This was impossible. His phone rang. Carter. Hey man, I pulled those records you asked about. And? Victor's property records show he bought the land in 1978, built the resort over 3 years, cost him $2 million back then. But here's the weird part. He paid cash, no loans, no mortgage, just cash. Marcus frowned. Where'd he get that kind of money? No idea, but the feds thought he was connected to a crime family out of Chicago. They were moving money through legitimate businesses all over the Rockies, ski resorts, casinos, real estate. Victor's place was just one piece. Did they ever prove it? No, that's why the case died. No evidence, no witnesses, no money trail. It's like he cleaned everything before he disappeared. Or hid it, Marcus said quietly. Carter paused. Marcus, you didn't find anything, did you? I'll call you back. He hung up. That afternoon, Marcus returned to the resort. He parked and sat in the truck for a long time, staring at the main lodge. The place looked different now. Not abandoned, not haunted, just heavy, like it was carrying a secret it was tired of holding. He walked inside and went straight to the basement. He opened the shipping container again and started counting. Carefully, methodically. He pulled out his notebook and wrote down every box, every denomination, every item. It took him 3 hours. When he finished, he sat on the cold concrete floor and stared at the number. $275 million, give or take. His hands shook as he closed the notebook. This wasn't just life-changing money. This was generational wealth. This was power. This was everything he'd ever needed and 1,000 things he'd never wanted. He thought of Riley, of Owen, of Sarah's grave and the headstone he couldn't afford to engrave properly. He thought of the nights he'd cried in the shower so the kids wouldn't hear, of the meals he'd skipped so they could eat, of the dreams he'd buried along with his wife. And now here was a chance, a real chance. But it came wrapped in darkness, and he didn't know if he was strong enough to carry it. Marcus stood up, closed the container, and walked back upstairs. The sun was setting. Golden light poured through the dusty windows, painting everything amber and soft. He stood in the lobby and looked around. This place could be beautiful again. It could be something good. But first, He had to decide who he was. The man who played it safe, or the man who took the risk. And somewhere deep in the mountains, in a town that had forgotten this place existed, Marcus knew his decision would change everything. Marcus didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the old house settle and creak around him. $275 million. The number kept circling through his mind like a prayer he didn't know how to finish. In the next room, Owen was snoring softly. Down the hall, Riley's light was still on. She was probably reading, unable to sleep herself, worrying about things 12-year-olds shouldn't have to worry about. He thought about Sarah, about the last conversation they'd had before the morphine took her too far away to reach. She'd gripped his hand with what little strength she had left and whispered, "Promise me you'll take care of them. Promise me you'll give them something good." He'd promised, but he'd been failing ever since, until now. Maybe. He rolled over and grabbed his phone from the nightstand. 3 a.m. He pulled up his contacts and scrolled to a name he hadn't called in months. Jack Hartley, Sarah's younger brother. Former cop turned private security consultant. Lived 2 states away in Utah, but had always told Marcus to call if he ever needed anything. Marcus stared at the name. Jack was the only person he could trust with this. The only person who might understand. He pressed call. Jack answered on the 4th ring, voice thick with sleep. "Marcus? What's wrong? Are the kids okay?" "They're fine. I'm sorry. I know it's late." "It's 3 a.m. What's going on?" Marcus sat up, swinging his legs over the side of the bed. "I need your help with something. Something big." There was a pause. Then Jack's voice came back, clearer now, alert. "I'm listening." "I can't talk about it over the phone. Can you come out here?" "To Colorado?" "Yeah." "Marcus, you're scaring me. What's this about?" Marcus closed his eyes. "I found something, and I don't know what to do with it." Another pause, longer this time. "Give me 2 days. I'll drive out." "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. And Marcus?" "Yeah." "Don't do anything stupid until I get there." Marcus hung up and sat in the darkness. 2 days. He could hold it together for 2 days. The next morning felt different. Marcus made pancakes for the first time in months. Owen's eyes lit up when he came into the kitchen and saw the stack on the table. "Pancakes? Dad, what's the special occasion?" "No occasion. Just felt like making them." Riley appeared in the doorway, suspicious. "You never make pancakes on a Tuesday." "Well, today I did. Sit down and eat." They ate together, the 3 of them, and for just a few minutes everything felt normal. Felt like before. Like when Sarah was still here and mornings were loud and full and safe. After he dropped the kids at school, Marcus drove back to the resort. He'd decided something during the sleepless night. He couldn't just sit on this information. He had to start moving forward. Make the place look legitimate. If anyone came asking questions, he needed to have answers that made sense. He parked and walked through the main lodge with new eyes. He grabbed a notebook and started making lists. What needed to be fixed first? What could wait? How to make at least part of this place livable? The lobby could be restored, the dining hall could be cleaned up, 6 guest rooms could be made functional. He could do most of the work himself. Carpentry, electrical, plumbing. He'd been doing it for years. But he'd need supplies, materials, money. He stopped mid-thought. He had money now. More money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. But he couldn't use it. Not yet. Not without raising questions. So he'd have to do this the hard way. Bootstrap it. Make it look real. Marcus spent the day cleaning. He hauled out years of dust and debris. He swept floors. He wiped down windows. He tested faucets and flipped breakers and made notes of everything that needed replacing. By late afternoon, his back ached and his hands were filthy, but the lobby looked almost presentable. He stood in the center of the room and turned in a slow circle. This place had been beautiful once. It could be again. His phone rang. Riley. Hey, sweetheart. Dad, where are you? At the resort. Why? Owen and I got off the bus and you're not home. Marcus checked his watch. 4:30. He'd completely lost track of time. I'm sorry. I'll be there in 20 minutes. It's okay. We're fine. But Dad? Yeah? Are we going to move there? To the resort? Marcus hesitated. Would you want to? I don't know, maybe. It's really big and kind of creepy, but also kind of cool. He smiled. I'll be home soon. Start your homework. Okay, love you. Love you too. He hung up and took one last look around. Then he locked up and headed home. That night, after dinner, Marcus sat on the porch with a beer while the kids did homework inside. The mountains were dark against the darkening sky, and the air smelled like pine and coming rain. He thought about what Riley had said, about moving to the resort. It made sense, actually. He was paying rent on this place. If they moved to the lodge, he could save that money, put it toward materials, make the story more believable. And maybe, just maybe, it would feel like a fresh start. A new chapter. Something other than the house where Sarah died. He was still thinking about it when a pair of headlights turned onto Maple Street. A black SUV rolled slowly past his house, windows tinted, moving too slow to be just passing through. Marcus set down his beer and watched. The SUV reached the end of the street, turned around in the cul-de-sac, and drove past again. Same slow crawl, same dark windows. His chest tightened. The SUV disappeared around the corner. Marcus stood up and walked to the end of the driveway, looking both ways. The street was empty, quiet, normal. But something felt wrong. He pulled out his phone and texted Carter. Hey, you still have those contacts at the police department? The reply came fast. Yeah, why? Can you ask if anyone's been asking about me, or about Pinecrest? You serious? Yeah. I'll check. You okay? Yeah, just being cautious. Marcus went back inside and locked the door. He checked the windows, made sure the back door was secure. Riley looked up from her textbook. What's wrong? Nothing. Just making sure everything's locked up. She didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. The next day, Marcus took the kids to school and then drove straight to the hardware store. He needed to look like he was working, needed to create a trail. He bought paint, brushes, drop cloths, cleaning supplies, paid with his debit card, made small talk with the cashier about fixing up the old lodge. Let the word spread naturally. By noon he was back at the resort, painting the lobby walls. The work was meditative, repetitive. It gave his hands something to do while his mind churned. He kept thinking about that black SUV, about the way it had cruised past his house, twice. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe he was being paranoid. But 30 years ago, someone had hidden $275 million in this building, and that someone had connections to organized crime. If anyone knew the money was still here, if anyone suspected, they'd come looking. And they wouldn't knock politely. Marcus was halfway through the second wall when he heard it. A car engine. Gravel crunching. He set down the paint roller and walked to the window. A silver sedan was pulling up the driveway. Expensive, clean, out of place. Marcus wiped his hands on his jeans and stepped outside. The car stopped and the driver's side door opened. A man stepped out, mid-40s, tailored suit, dark hair graying at the temples. He looked like money, looked like power. He smiled as he approached, hand extended. You must be Marcus. I'm glad I caught you. Marcus didn't shake his hand. Do I know you? The man lowered his hand, still smiling. No, but I know you. My name is Vincent. Vincent Mallory. I believe you recently purchased this property. That's right. Mind if I ask what you paid for it? Marcus crossed his arms. Yeah, actually. I do mind. What do you want? Vincent looked up at the lodge, his expression unreadable. Beautiful place. My uncle built it, you know. Spent his whole life here. It was his dream. Marcus's pulse quickened. Your uncle? Victor Mallory. I'm sure you've heard the stories. I've heard he disappeared. Vincent nodded slowly. 30 years ago, November 14th, 1992. He went for a morning walk and never came back. My aunt searched for him for years, died still wondering what happened. I'm sorry for your loss, but that doesn't explain why you're here. Vincent turned back to Marcus, and the smile was gone. I'm here because this property belongs to my family, and I'd like to buy it back. It's not for sale. I'll pay you 10 times what you paid. Not interested. Vincent stepped closer. You don't understand. There are things here, family things, sentimental value. I'm willing to be very generous. Marcus held his ground. I said no. For a long moment, they stared at each other. Then Vincent reached into his jacket. Marcus tensed. But Vincent just pulled out a business card and held it out. Think about it. My number's on there. When you change your mind, call me. I won't change my mind. Vincent smiled again, but it didn't reach his eyes. Everyone changes their mind eventually. It's just a matter of finding the right motivation. He walked back to his car, climbed in, and drove away. Marcus stood there until the dust settled. Then he pulled out his phone and took a picture of the business card. Vincent Mallory, Private Acquisitions, a phone number with a Utah area code. Marcus went back inside, but he didn't pick up the paint roller. He paced the lobby, mind racing. Vincent knew. Maybe not everything, but something. He hadn't just stumbled across the property listing. He'd been watching, waiting, and now he was making his move. Marcus called Carter. Hey, I need another favor. What now? Can you find anything on a guy named Vincent Mallory? Private Acquisitions, based out of Utah, probably. What's this about, Marcus? Just look him up, please. Carter sighed. I'll see what I can find. Marcus hung up and stared at the business card. Everyone changes their mind eventually. It's just a matter of finding the right motivation. That sounded like a threat. That sounded like danger. And Marcus's kids were sitting in classrooms right now, unprotected, unaware that their father had just stepped into something that might swallow them whole. Jack arrived 2 days later, just after sunrise. Marcus was already awake, sitting on the porch with coffee, when Jack's truck pulled into the driveway. Jack climbed out, all 6 feet 3 inches of him, looking like he hadn't aged a day since Sarah's funeral. They hugged hard and long. You look like hell, Jack said. Thanks, you look great. Liar. They went inside. The kids were still asleep. Marcus poured Jack coffee, and they sat at the kitchen table in the early morning quiet. So, Jack said, you going to tell me what this is about? Marcus pulled out his phone and showed him the pictures. The vault, the shipping container, the stacks of cash, the gold, the diamonds. Jack's expression didn't change, but his knuckles went white around the coffee mug. How much? Marcus slid a piece of paper across the table, the number he'd written in his notebook. 275 million. Jack set down the mug carefully. You counted? 3 times. And you're sure it's real? I had a jeweler friend look at photos of the diamonds. He said they're real, high quality. The cash is old but legitimate. The bonds are genuine. It's all real. Jack leaned back in his chair, rubbing his face. Okay. Walk me through everything, from the beginning. Marcus told him. The auction, the purchase, the blueprints, the hidden vault, the discovery. And then he told him about Vincent, about the visit, about the black SUV. When he finished, Jack was quiet for a long time. You know what this is, right? Jack finally said. It's evidence from a federal case that went cold 30 years ago. Yeah. Which means legally you're supposed to report it. I know. But you haven't. Marcus met his eyes. No. Why not? Marcus's throat tightened. Because I'm tired, Jack. I'm tired of being broke. Tired of choosing between rent and groceries. Tired of watching my kids go without. Tired of carrying debt from medical bills that didn't even save her. His voice cracked. Sarah died and left me with nothing but memories and bills. And now I finally have a chance to give Riley and Owen the life she wanted for them. And you're telling me I have to just hand it over? Jack reached across the table and gripped Marcus's shoulder. I'm not telling you anything. I'm just making sure you understand what you're stepping into. What happens next will force Marcus into an impossible choice, bring threats to his doorstep, and reveal just how far dangerous men will go to reclaim what they believe is theirs. Stay tuned to see what happens next. If you're enjoying the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more. Jack stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the quiet street. Tell me about Vincent. Not much to tell. He showed up 3 days ago, said his uncle built the resort, said it had sentimental value, offered to buy it back. Did he threaten you? Not directly, but the way he said it. Everyone changes their mind eventually. It felt like a threat. Jack turned back. He knows. Maybe not everything, but he knows there's something there. That's what I thought. Which means he's probably been watching this place for years, waiting for someone to buy it, waiting for someone to find what his uncle hid. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. So what do I do? Jack sat back down. First, you secure your family. Make sure the kids are safe. Then you figure out who this guy really is, what his connections are. Because if his uncle was mob-connected, he probably is too. Carter's looking into him. Good. Second, you need to decide what you actually want here. You want to keep the money? Fine. But that means going to war with people who've been killing for this kind of money for decades. Or you turn it over to the feds, take whatever finder's fee they offer, and walk away clean. That's not a choice. It's the only choice that keeps your kids safe. Marcus shook his head. There has to be another way. There isn't. Trust me. I worked organized crime for 8 years. These people don't negotiate. They don't forgive. They take what they want and they bury anyone who gets in the way. Then I'll bury them first. Jack stared at him. You hear yourself right now? You're a contractor, a single dad. You're not equipped for this. Then help me get equipped. Marcus, please, you're the only person I trust, the only person who understands what's at stake. Help me. Jack closed his eyes and exhaled slowly. When he opened them again, something had shifted. If we do this, we do it my way. No cowboys, no risks. We play it smart and we play it safe. Agreed? Agreed. And if at any point I think your kids are in danger, we're out. We go straight to the feds. No arguments. Marcus nodded. Okay. Jack pulled out his phone. I'm going to make some calls. People I trust. See what we can find out about Vincent Mallory and his family connections. Meanwhile, you act normal. Keep working on the resort. Keep your routine with the kids. Don't do anything that looks suspicious. What about the money? Leave it where it is. Don't touch it. Don't move it. It's been hidden for 30 years. It can stay hidden a little longer. Marcus agreed, though every instinct in him wanted to protect it, wanted to secure it, wanted to make sure it didn't disappear the way Victor had. Jack stayed for breakfast. The kids came stumbling out of their rooms, and Owen's face lit up when he saw his uncle. Uncle Jack. Hey, buddy, you get taller every time I see you. Riley hugged him tight. What are you doing here? Came to help your dad with a project. Thought I'd stick around for a few days if that's okay. Yes, Owen shouted. Can we go fishing? Absolutely. After school today. Deal? Deal. Watching them together, watching Jack make his kids laugh in a way Marcus hadn't been able to in months, he felt something loosen in his chest. Maybe he wasn't as alone as he thought. Maybe they could actually pull this off. After Marcus dropped the kids at school, he and Jack drove to the resort. Jack walked through the entire property, taking notes, asking questions, studying everything with a cop's eye for detail. You said the vault was behind the kitchen? Yeah, through a hidden door. Show me. Marcus led him down. Jack examined the stairwell, the door, the massive underground room. He walked the perimeter, checking for cameras, for wiring, for anything that might indicate the space was monitored. It's clean, he said. Whoever built this wanted it invisible. Marcus opened the shipping container. Jack stepped inside and looked at the boxes. He didn't touch anything, just looked. This is military-grade organization, he said quietly. Whoever packed this knew what they were doing. This wasn't some panicked hideaway. This was planned. Victor? Maybe. Or maybe someone who worked for him. Someone professional. Jack pulled out his phone and took pictures. Not of the money itself, but of the way it was arranged, the labels, the organization. I'm sending these to a friend of mine, former FBI. He might recognize the method. Won't that put us on their radar? He owes me, and he's retired. He'll keep it quiet. They went back upstairs. Jack made calls while Marcus worked on painting. By mid-afternoon, Jack had information. Okay, he said, sliding his phone into his pocket. Vincent Mallory, 46 years old, lives in Park City, Utah, runs what looks like a legitimate private equity firm. But dig a little deeper and you find connections. His uncle Victor was absolutely mob. Chicago outfit, moved west in the 70s. The Mallory family has been connected for 3 generations. Vincent's never been charged with anything, but his name comes up in investigations. Money laundering, racketeering, nothing sticks. So he's untouchable. Not untouchable, just careful. Jack paused. My contact also said something interesting. About 6 months ago, Vincent started making inquiries about Pinecrest Lodge, asking around, trying to find out who owned it, why it hadn't been sold. Marcus felt his stomach drop. He's been planning this. Yeah, which means when you bought it, you stepped into something he'd already set in motion. And he's not going to walk away just because you said no. What do? We gather evidence. We document everything. And we find someone in the federal system we can trust. Someone who'll protect you and the kids while they build a case against Vincent. And the money? Jack looked at him. If you turn it over, you might get 10%. Finder's fee. That's still $27 million, Marcus. More than enough to change your life. And if I don't turn it over? Then you're keeping stolen money, which makes you a criminal. And you're doing it while a mobster is actively hunting for it, which makes you a target. Marcus sat down on the dusty floor. I don't know if I can do that. Just hand it over. I know. But think about Riley and Owen. Think about what happens if Vincent decides you know too much. If he decides the easiest way to get what he wants is to eliminate you. He wouldn't. He would. These people don't think like you and me. Life is cheap. Money is everything. That night, Marcus lay in bed staring at the ceiling again. Jack was sleeping on the couch. The kids were safe in their rooms. Everything was quiet. But Marcus's mind was screaming. He thought about Sarah, about the promises he'd made, about the life he wanted to give his kids. And he thought about the man in the tailored suit who'd smiled at him like a predator watching prey. Everyone changes their mind eventually. Maybe Jack was right. Maybe the smart play was to turn everything over. Take the finder's fee. Walk away. But something in Marcus rebelled against that idea. He'd found it. He'd taken the risk. He'd stepped into the darkness and brought back light. Why should he hand it over to people who'd do nothing with it except lock it away as evidence? He rolled over and looked at the photo on his nightstand. Sarah, smiling, holding baby Riley. Marcus beside her with Owen on his shoulders. They looked so young, so hopeful, so unaware of what was coming. He picked up the photo and whispered, "Tell me what to do." But the photo didn't answer. It never did. The next morning, Carter called. "You need to come down to the station." Marcus's blood turned cold. "Why? What's wrong?" "Just come down. Now." Marcus told Jack, who insisted on coming with him. They drove in silence. At the station, Carter met them in the parking lot. His face was grim. "What's going on?" Marcus asked. Carter handed him a folder. "Surveillance photos. Someone's been watching your house." Marcus opened the folder. His hands shook. Photos of his house, of Riley getting on the school bus, of Owen playing in the yard, of Marcus himself leaving for work, all taken from a distance, all within the last week. "Who took these?" Marcus asked, his voice barely a whisper. "We don't know. They were sent to the department anonymously this morning with a note." "What note?" Carter pulled out a plastic evidence bag. Inside was a single piece of paper with typed words. "Ask Marcus Monroe what he found at Pinecrest Lodge. Ask him where the money went." Marcus felt the world tilt. Jack grabbed his arm. "Breathe." "They're threatening my kids," Marcus said, his voice shaking with rage. "They're using my kids." Carter looked between them. "What money? What's he talking about?" Jack stepped in. "We need to talk. Somewhere private." They went inside. In a small conference room, Marcus told Carter everything. The vault, the money, Vincent, all of it. Carter listened without interrupting. When Marcus finished, Carter leaned back and whistled low. "You found Victor Mallory's stash. You knew about it?" "Every cop in the county knew the rumors. We just thought it was a myth. Thought the feds had already found it or Victor had taken it with him when he disappeared. It's real, and now someone's threatening my family because of it." Carter stood up. "Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm calling the FBI. They need to know, and we're putting protection on your house and your kids until this is resolved." "No," Marcus said. "No FBI. Not yet." "Marcus, these people sent photos of your children to the police. This isn't a game." "I know, but the second the FBI gets involved, I lose everything. They seize the money, they seize the property, and Vincent disappears into the wind. He's been doing this for decades. He knows how to avoid charges." Carter looked at Jack. "Talk sense into him." Jack was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Give us 72 hours. "What?" 72 hours. Let us handle this our way. If we can't resolve it, we bring in the feds, but give us 3 days. Carter shook his head. "You're both insane." "Probably," Jack said. "But we're also right. The system's been chasing these people for 30 years and getting nowhere. Maybe it's time to try something different." Carter looked at Marcus, at the fear and determination in his eyes, at the photos of his kids spread across the table. Finally, he sighed. 72 hours, but I'm keeping patrol cars near your house. And if anything, and I mean anything, happens to those kids, I'm calling every federal agent in the western United States." "Deal," Marcus said. They left the station. In the truck, Jack turned to Marcus. "You know what we have to do now, right?" "Yeah," Marcus said. "We have to make Vincent come to us." "And when he does?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "We finish this." The war had begun, and Marcus Monroe, a widowed father who just wanted to give his kids a better life, was about to learn just how far he'd go to protect them. The plan was simple, maybe too simple, but sometimes simple was all you had. Marcus and Jack sat in the resort's empty dining hall, a single lamp casting shadows across the dusty floor. Jack had spread papers across one of the old tables. Notes, diagrams, phone numbers. "We set a trap," Jack said. "We let Vincent think you're willing to deal, that you found something and you're scared, that you want to sell the property and disappear." Marcus nodded. "And when he shows up? I'll be recording everything. We get him to admit what he's after, get him to threaten you, build enough evidence that when we do bring in the feds, they have something solid." What if he doesn't take the bait? He will. Men like Vincent, they can't help themselves. They think they're smarter than everyone else. That's their weakness. Marcus looked at the business card still sitting in his pocket. Vincent Mallory. Private acquisitions. When do we do this? Tomorrow. You call him. Set up a meeting here at the resort. Neutral ground. Public enough that he won't try anything violent. Private enough that he'll talk freely. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Riley. Dad, when are you coming home? Owen wants to show you something. His chest tightened. I need to get back to the kids. Jack stood up. Go. I'll stay here tonight. Set up the equipment. Make sure everything's ready. You sure? Yeah. And Marcus? Jack's expression was serious. After tomorrow, there's no going back. Whatever happens, we're committed. You good with that? Marcus thought about the photos, about Riley getting on the bus, about Owen playing in the yard, about faceless men watching his children. Yeah, he said, I'm good with that. He drove home through darkness so complete it felt like driving through ink. When he pulled into the driveway, every light in the house was on. His heart jumped. He ran inside. Riley. Owen? In here, Dad. Owen's voice came from the living room. Marcus found them both on the couch, safe, watching a movie. Riley looked up. You okay? You look weird. I'm fine, just tired. Owen jumped up, holding a piece of paper covered in crayon drawings. Look what I made. It's our new house. Marcus knelt down and studied the drawing. It showed the resort, but brighter, colorful, with stick figures of the three of them standing in front, flowers in the yard, a sun overhead. This is beautiful, buddy. Do you think we'll really live there someday? Marcus pulled him close. Yeah, I think we will. That night, after the kids were asleep, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with his phone in his hand. He stared at Vincent's business card for a long time. Then he dialed. Vincent answered on the second ring. I was wondering when you'd call. We need to talk, Marcus said. I'm listening. Not on the phone, in person. Tomorrow, at the resort, noon. There was a pause. You found something. Maybe. Don't play games with me, Marcus. Noon tomorrow. Come alone or don't come at all. Marcus hung up before Vincent could respond. His hands were shaking. He'd just invited a wolf into his house. Now he had to be ready when it arrived. The next morning felt surreal. Marcus made breakfast, packed lunches, drove the kids to school like it was any other day. But when Riley climbed out of the truck, she turned back. Dad, are you in trouble? The question caught him off guard. What makes you think that? You've been acting strange, and Uncle Jack showing up out of nowhere, and you keep checking the windows like you're waiting for something bad. Marcus reached out and squeezed her hand. I'm handling some stuff, grown-up stuff, but I promise you, everything's going to be okay. You're not a very good liar. He smiled sadly. I know. Just be careful, okay? I will. I love you. Love you too. He watched her walk into the school, backpack bouncing, and felt his resolve harden. Whatever happened today, she and Owen would be safe. That was all that mattered. By 11:30, Marcus was back at the resort. Jack had turned the dining hall into a command center, tiny cameras hidden in the rafters, audio recorders tucked into old light fixtures, a laptop on one of the back tables monitoring everything. You're wired too, Jack said, handing Marcus a small device. Clip this inside your shirt. Try not to touch it. Marcus did as instructed. What if he searches me? He won't. He thinks he's in control. He thinks you're just some scared contractor who stumbled onto something big. Let him keep thinking that. And if things go wrong? Jack pulled back his jacket, showing the gun holstered at his hip. Then I handle it. At exactly noon, a black town car pulled up the driveway. Vincent stepped out, alone like Marcus had demanded, but Marcus could see another car parked down the road. Back up. Vincent walked up the steps, hands in his pockets, looking relaxed, like this was just another business meeting. Marcus met him at the door. Thanks for coming. Of course. Shall we? They walked into the dining hall. Vincent looked around, taking in the dust, the old furniture, the decades of neglect. My uncle loved this room, used to host parties here. Politicians, businessmen, celebrities. This place was magic once. Sit down, Marcus said. They sat across from each other at one of the old tables. Vincent laced his fingers together and smiled. So, you found it. Found what? Don't insult my intelligence. You found what my uncle left behind. That's why you called. Marcus leaned back. Let's say I did. What makes you think it's yours? Because Victor was my blood. Whatever he left belongs to his family. He disappeared 30 years ago. Legally, he's dead. This property was seized by the county for unpaid taxes. I bought it fair and square. Vincent's smile thinned. Legal ownership and moral ownership are two different things. So, this is about morality now. This is about respect, about understanding that some things are bigger than property law. Marcus let the silence stretch. Let Vincent fill it. Here's what I'm offering, Vincent said. You sell me the property. I'll pay you $200,000, cash, no questions asked. You walk away, take your kids somewhere nice, start over. And if I say no, Vincent's expression hardened. Then we have a problem. Because I'm not asking, Marcus. I'm telling you, one way or another, what's in this building is coming back to my family. Is that a threat? It's a reality check. Jack's voice crackled in Marcus's earpiece. Got it. Keep him talking. Marcus leaned forward. Your uncle was a criminal. The money you're looking for, it's dirty, stolen, laundered from God knows where. You really want to claim that as your inheritance? My uncle was a businessman. He provided services to people who needed discretion. There's no crime in that. The FBI thought differently. Vincent laughed. The FBI couldn't prove anything. They tore this place apart and found nothing. You know why? Because Victor was smarter than all of them. Or maybe he just hid it better. So you admit you found something? Marcus realized his mistake. I'm saying hypothetically. Vincent stood up, shoving his chair back. Enough games. I know you found the vault. I know what's down there. Victor told me about it before he died. Marcus's blood went cold. He died? I thought he disappeared. That's what we let everyone think, but he didn't disappear. He had a heart attack on one of his morning hikes, died instantly. We buried him quietly, family only. And before he died, he told me everything, where the money was, how to access it. The only problem was the property was tied up in legal hell, and we couldn't get to it. Until I bought it. Until you bought it, which makes you either the luckiest man alive or the stupidest. I haven't decided which. Vincent walked to the window, looking out at the mountains. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to take my offer, $200,000, and you're going to sign over the deed, today. And if I don't? Vincent turned back, and all pretense of civility was gone. Then I stop being nice. I stop making offers, and I start taking what I want. Do you understand what I'm saying? Marcus stood up slowly. You're threatening me. I'm educating you about how the world actually works, about what happens to people who get in the way of things that don't concern them. My kids, those photos. Insurance, to make sure you understood I was serious. Rage flooded Marcus's system. You had someone follow my children. I had someone document your life, your routines, your vulnerabilities, standard procedure. Standard procedure for a sociopath. Vincent smiled. Careful, Marcus. You're not in a position to throw insults. Actually, I am. Marcus pulled out his phone and pressed play. Vincent's voice came through the speaker. Then I stop being nice, I stop making offers, and I start taking what I want. Vincent's face went white, then red. You recorded me. Every word. You stupid son of a... Federal agents are already on their way, Marcus said, though it was a bluff. By tomorrow, you'll be arrested for extortion, conspiracy, and about a dozen other charges. Vincent moved fast, faster than Marcus expected. He grabbed Marcus by the shirt and slammed him against the wall. "You have no idea what you've done." Jack burst through the back door, gun drawn. "Step away from him, now." Vincent let go, hands raised, but his eyes were wild. "You think this changes anything? You think recording me matters? I'll have lawyers tear that apart before it ever sees a courtroom. And while they're doing that, I'll have people making sure you and your family learn what it means to cross the Mallory name." "Threatening a federal witness," Jack said. "That's another charge. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm stating facts." Vincent straightened his suit, composure returning. "You want to play with the big boys, Marcus? Fine. But understand the game you just entered. Because this doesn't end with a recording or a phone call to the police. This ends when I get what I came for." He walked toward the door, then stopped. "You have 48 hours to change your mind. After that, the offer's off the table, and whatever happens next is on you." He left. The town car pulled away. Marcus slumped against the wall, adrenaline crashing. Jack lowered his gun. "We got everything. Threats, extortion, admission of surveillance. It's enough." "It's not enough," Marcus said. "He's right. His lawyers will make this disappear." "Not if we bring in someone who can't be bought." Jack pulled out his phone. "I know someone. FBI. Sarah Fisher. She's been trying to build a case against the Mallory family for 5 years. This is the break she needs." "Will she protect my kids?" "That'll be her first priority." Marcus nodded. "Make the call." 2 hours later, they were sitting in a coffee shop 30 miles outside of town. The woman across from them looked like she could bench press Marcus and Jack combined. Agent Sarah Fisher, mid-40s, short grey hair, eyes that missed nothing. She listened to Jack's explanation without interrupting. Then she listened to the recording. Twice. When she finished, she set down her phone and looked at Marcus. "You understand what you're asking me to do? Protect my family while you arrest Vincent Mallory." "It's not that simple. Vincent's smart. He's been investigated a dozen times and walked away clean every time. This recording helps, but it's not enough for a conviction. We need more." "Like what?" "Like catching him in the act. Like setting up a sting where he actually attempts to retrieve the money. Where we can document everything and tie him directly to the original crimes." Marcus's stomach dropped. "You want to use me as bait?" "I want to use the money as bait, with you as the access point. We set up surveillance in the vault, wait for Vincent to make his move, record everything. Then we move in." "And my kids?" "We put them in protective custody during the operation. Move them somewhere safe, guard them 24/7. "For how long?" 72 hours, maybe less." Marcus looked at Jack. "What do you think?" "I think it's the only play we have left." Agent Fisher leaned forward. "I'm not going to lie to you, Marcus. This is dangerous. If Vincent suspects a trap, he could run, or worse, he could escalate. But if we do this right, we end the Mallory family's criminal enterprise, and you get to keep a portion of what you found." "How much?" "That depends on cooperation and the courts, but my guess, 10 to 15%. Finder's fee, witness compensation, civil forfeiture exceptions. It could be 20 to 40 million. Marcus's head spun. "And if I say no?" "Then we seize everything anyway. You get nothing, and Vincent keeps threatening your family until he gets what he wants. This way, you walk away with money, protection, and peace of mind." Marcus thought about Riley's drawing, about the resort filled with color and light, about the future he wanted to build. "Okay," he said. "I'm in." Agent Fisher nodded. "Good. We move in 24 hours. I'll need access to the property to set up equipment, and I'll need you to make one more call to Vincent. Tell him you're ready to deal. Set up a meeting for tomorrow night." "He'll be suspicious." "Probably. But greed makes people sloppy. If he thinks he's close to getting what he wants, he'll take the risk. They shook hands. Marcus felt like he'd just signed a deal with the devil. But what choice did he have? That night, Marcus sat Riley and Owen down in the living room. Jack sat with them. "We need to talk about something important," Marcus began. Owen's eyes went wide. "Are we in trouble?" "No, buddy, but we need to go on a little trip, just for a few days." "Where?" Riley asked, suspicious. "To a safe house, with some very nice people who are going to make sure nothing bad happens while I finish some work." "What kind of work?" Marcus struggled for words. Jack stepped in. "Your dad's helping the police with something. It's important. And to make sure you guys are safe while he does it, you're going to stay somewhere protected. Think of it like a vacation." "I don't want a vacation," Owen said, his voice cracking. "I want to stay with Dad." Marcus pulled him close. "I know, but this is only for a few days, and when it's over, I promise everything will be different. Better. We'll have our new home. We'll be together, okay?" Riley studied his face. "This is about the resort, isn't it? About what you found there?" Marcus nodded. "Yeah. Is it dangerous?" "Not for you. That's why you're going somewhere safe." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she hugged him. "Just come back. That's all I care about. Just come back." "I will. I promise." The next morning, Agent Fisher arrived with 2 other agents. They were kind, patient. They explained everything to Riley and Owen in ways kids could understand. By noon, the kids were packed and ready. Marcus hugged them both so hard it hurt. "Be good. Listen to the agents. And remember, I love you more than anything in this world." "We know, Dad," Riley whispered. "We love you too." He watched them drive away in an unmarked car and felt like his heart was being ripped out of his chest. Jack put a hand on his shoulder. "They'll be safe." "They better be." By evening, the resort was transformed. Cameras everywhere, microphones, motion sensors, a full tactical team positioned in the woods around the property. Agent Fisher reviewed the plan one more time. "Vincent thinks he's meeting you here at 9 o'clock. Thinks you're going to show him the vault and negotiate a price. What he doesn't know is we'll have eyes on everything. The second he makes a move toward the money, we move in. What if he brings backup? We have counter-snipers, drones, satellite surveillance. If he brings an army, we'll know before they get within a mile of this place." Marcus nodded, trying to calm his racing heart. "And me? You stay calm. You act natural. You lead him to the vault and let him talk. The more he says, the more evidence we have." At 8:45, Vincent's town car pulled up. Marcus stood on the front steps, just like Agent Fisher had instructed. Stay visible, stay calm. Vincent stepped out, alone again, but Marcus knew there were probably others nearby. "Marcus," Vincent said, walking up, "glad you came to your senses. Let's just get this over with." Agreed. They walked inside. Marcus led him through the lodge, down to the kitchen, to the hidden door. "It's down here?" Vincent asked. "Yeah." They descended into the vault. Marcus had left the shipping container open, just a crack, enough to be tantalizing. Vincent walked straight to it, pulled it open, stared at the contents. His expression was pure hunger. "My God," he whispered. "It's all here, everything he said." "There's more than you think," Marcus said. "Bearer bonds, diamonds, gold. I couldn't even count it all." Vincent reached out and touched one of the cash boxes, reverently, like he was touching something sacred. "Do you know what this represents? This is 3 generations of work, of sacrifice, of risk. My grandfather started this empire. My uncle preserved it, and now it comes back to me." "So you're admitting it's criminal money?" Vincent turned, and his smile was cold. "I'm admitting it's mine." Upstairs, Agent Fisher was listening through her earpiece. "That's enough. Move in." But before her team could act, an explosion rocked the resort. Marcus was thrown backward, ears ringing. Smoke filled the vault. When he looked up, Vincent was gone, and so was one of the boxes. Agents poured into the building, weapons drawn. Suspect fleeing north. I repeat, suspect fleeing north. Marcus stumbled upstairs. Agent Fisher grabbed him. Are you hurt? No. What happened? Explosives. He had a team outside. They created a diversion. He grabbed what he could and ran. Did you get him? Not yet, but we will. They didn't. By midnight, Vincent Mallory had vanished, disappeared into the night with a single box containing roughly $10 million. The rest of the vault was secured. Agents catalogued everything. Marcus sat on the front steps, covered in dust, watching the controlled chaos. Jack sat beside him. Your kids are safe. I just got confirmation. Good. And Agent Fisher says they still have enough evidence to charge Vincent. Conspiracy, theft, assault, explosives. When they find him, he's done. If they find him. Jack didn't argue. They sat in silence as the sun began to rise over the mountains, painting everything gold. When Agent Fisher finally approached, she looked exhausted. We're seizing the remaining assets, $265 million, give or take. The courts will determine distribution, but based on your cooperation and the risk you took, I'll personally recommend you receive 15%. That's roughly $40 million. Marcus just nodded. My kids? You can pick them up this afternoon. They're safe, healthy, asking about you. Thank you. She put a hand on his shoulder. You did good, Marcus. You helped us break a criminal organization that's been operating for decades. That means something. Vincent's still out there. For now, but we'll find him, and when we do, you'll be the witness that puts him away for life. She walked away. Marcus sat there as the sun climbed higher, warming his face, chasing away the shadows. It was over, mostly. And while the ending wasn't perfect, while there were still loose threads and unanswered questions, Marcus realized something important. He was alive. His kids were safe. And somewhere in the distance, a future was waiting. A future built not just on money, but on choices, on courage, on the willingness to risk everything for the people he loved. And that, he thought, was worth more than any vault could hold. 6 months had passed since the night Vincent Mallory disappeared into the darkness with a box of stolen money. 6 months since federal agents had swarmed the resort and changed Marcus's life forever. The courts had moved slower than he'd hoped, but faster than Jack had warned him to expect. In the end, the judge had been sympathetic. A widowed father who'd stumbled onto a criminal enterprise, cooperated fully with federal investigators, and put his life at risk to help dismantle a multi-generational crime family. Marcus was awarded 17% of the recovered assets, $45,200,000. After taxes, attorney fees, and various legal complications, he'd walked away with just under $30 million. It was more money than he'd ever imagined having, more than he knew what to do with, and every single day he woke up terrified he'd lose it, terrified he'd make the wrong choice, terrified he'd let Sarah down. But slowly, carefully, with Jack's help and advice from financial advisors Agent Fisher had recommended, Marcus began to build something, not just for himself, for everyone. The first thing he did was pay off every debt. Medical bills that had haunted him for 3 years, gone. The funeral costs he'd been paying off in installments, cleared. Student loans from a degree he'd never finished, erased. And then he started building. The resort became his obsession, not as a monument to himself, but as something Sarah would have loved, something that would help people the way she'd always wanted to help people. He hired contractors, local ones, men and women from the community who needed work. He paid them well, gave them benefits, treated them with respect. And slowly, room by room, floor by floor, Pinecrest Lodge came back to life. The lobby was restored first, the stone fireplace cleaned and repointed, the chandelier repaired and polished until it sparkled, new floors installed, walls painted, furniture that was antique but comfortable. It looked like it had in the old photographs from the 1980s, but warmer, more welcoming, less showpiece, more home. The guest rooms came next. Marcus kept 12 of them as actual guest rooms for people who needed a place to stay, families in transition, people escaping bad situations, anyone who needed refuge. The rest he converted into something different. On the second floor, he created a learning center, woodworking shop, auto mechanics bay, computer lab, welding station, all the trades he'd learned over the years, all the skills that had kept him employed when everything else fell apart. He wanted to teach them. Give kids and adults options, opportunities, ways to build their own futures. Riley had helped design it. She'd drawn up plans, picked colors, suggested layouts. At 13 now, she'd grown even more, not just taller, but steadier. The trauma of those few days in protective custody had marked her, but it had also strengthened something in her. A resilience Marcus recognized because he'd built it himself over years of hardship. Owen, now 9, had processed everything differently. He'd turned it into stories. Wild, imaginative tales about secret agents and hidden treasure and brave fathers who fought bad guys. His therapist said it was healthy, his way of making sense of chaos. And Marcus didn't discourage it. If storytelling helped his son heal, then Marcus would listen to every single tale, no matter how fantastical. The dining hall became a community center, open to anyone. Marcus hired a staff to run programs, after-school tutoring, job placement services, addiction recovery meetings, grief counseling groups, financial literacy classes. Anything people needed, he tried to provide, and every single service was free, completely free, because Marcus remembered what it felt like to be drowning, to be one emergency away from losing everything, to be too proud to ask for help and too desperate not to need it. The community center became a place where people could come without shame, where struggling wasn't a moral failure, where help wasn't charity, it was community. The town of Blue Hollow had been dying for decades. Young people left for cities, businesses closed. The school district talked about consolidating, but slowly, quietly, things began to shift. The jobs at the resort helped. 20 full-time positions, another 30 part-time. Decent wages, good benefits. People who'd been working 2 or 3 jobs could suddenly afford to work 1. Parents who'd never had time for their kids suddenly made it to soccer games and school plays. And the programs Marcus funded started bearing fruit. Teenagers who'd been headed nowhere found purpose in the welding class. Single mothers learned bookkeeping and started their own businesses. Veterans found community in the woodworking shop, building furniture and healing through craft. Word spread. Not through advertising, Marcus refused to promote himself, but through whispers, through gratitude, through changed lives. By the end of the first year, Blue Hollow had 3 new businesses: a cafe, a bookstore, a bike shop, small things. But they mattered. The school stopped talking about consolidating and started talking about expanding. Young families who'd left began coming back, and the resort, once a symbol of crime and darkness, became the heart of something bright. Marcus never forgot Vincent Mallory. Agent Fisher called every few months with updates. They'd tracked him to Mexico, then to South America. Then the trail went cold. The $10 million he'd stolen was gone, probably hidden in offshore accounts or laundered through shell corporations. Vincent was smart. He'd stay hidden as long as he needed to. But Marcus didn't live in fear anymore. He'd taken precautions, security systems, bodyguards when necessary. But mostly he lived openly, visibly, because hiding felt like letting Vincent win. And Marcus refused to give him that power. One afternoon in late spring, Marcus stood in what used to be the resort's old garden. It was overgrown, wild, forgotten, but he could see potential. He'd hired a landscape architect, showed her photos of Sarah, told her stories about his wife's love of flowers, of color, of things that grew. "I want a memorial garden," he'd said, "something alive, something that honors who she was. The architect had listened, sketched, planned. And now, 6 weeks later, Marcus stood in the middle of transformation. Stone pathways curved through planted beds, roses, Sarah's favorite, wildflowers in colors she'd loved, benches placed in quiet spots, a fountain in the center, water trickling over smooth stones. And at the garden's heart, a bronze plaque set into a large stone. Sarah Marie Monroe, beloved wife, mother, and light. She taught us that love builds what fear destroys. Marcus ran his fingers over the letters and felt his eyes burn. "You would have loved this," he whispered. "You would have loved all of it." "Dad!" Riley's voice came from behind him. He turned. She and Owen stood at the garden entrance, both of them dressed up. Today was the opening, the official dedication of Pinecrest Community Center. The whole town was coming. "It's beautiful," Riley said, walking over. "Mum would have cried." "Happy tears?" Owen asked. "The best kind," Marcus said, pulling them both close. They stood together in the garden, the three of them, and Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of purpose, the knowledge that suffering could be transformed into something meaningful if you were brave enough to try. By 3 o'clock that afternoon, the resort was packed. Hundreds of people filled the lobby, spilled onto the porch, wandered through the halls. The mayor gave a speech. So did Agent Fisher, who'd driven up from Denver. Business owners talked about the economic revival. Parents thanked Marcus for the programs that had changed their kids' lives. And through it all, Marcus stood quietly in the back, uncomfortable with the attention, grateful for the outcome. Then it was his turn to speak. He walked to the microphone set up in the lobby, hands shaking slightly. Public speaking had never been his thing. But these people deserved to hear from him, deserved to understand why he'd done this. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice echoing slightly. "I'm not good at speeches, so I'll keep this short. 3 years ago, I lost my wife to cancer. It broke me in ways I'm still healing from. And for a long time, I didn't think things would ever get better. I was drowning in debt, struggling to feed my kids, wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake trying to do this alone." He paused, gathering himself. "Then I bought this place, and I found something I wasn't looking for. Most of you know the story by now. The money, the danger, all of it. But what you might not know is that every single day since then, I've asked myself the same question. What would Sarah want me to do with this?" His voice cracked. Riley reached up and squeezed his hand. "She would have wanted me to help people, to build something that lasted, to turn something dark into something light. So that's what I've tried to do." He gestured around the room. "This place isn't mine. It's ours. Every single person in this community has a stake in it, has a right to use it, to benefit from it, to help shape what it becomes. Because the truth is, money doesn't mean anything if you're not sharing it. Success doesn't matter if you're not lifting others up with you. And legacy isn't about what you build for yourself. It's about what you leave behind for everyone else." The room was silent. "My wife used to say that love is the only thing that grows when you give it away. I didn't understand that when she was alive, but I understand it now. Every kid who learns a trade in our workshop, every family that finds refuge in our guest rooms, every person who walks through these doors and feels seen, heard, and valued, that's love growing. That's Sarah's legacy continuing. And I'm grateful, so grateful, to be part of it." He stepped back from the microphone. The room erupted in applause. People stood. Some were crying, others were smiling. And in that moment, Marcus understood something profound. He hadn't just found money in a hidden vault. He'd found purpose. He'd found a way to honor the woman he'd lost. He'd found a path forward that made sense of the suffering. After the speeches, people toured the facility. Kids ran through the halls, adults explored the workshops, families walked through Sarah's garden, And Marcus moved among them, shaking hands, accepting thanks, listening to stories. An older woman approached him, tears in her eyes. "You don't know me," she said, "but 6 months ago my husband died, left me with nothing but debt. I didn't know how I'd survive. Then someone paid off my mortgage, anonymously, just made it disappear. The bank said they couldn't tell me who, but I knew. I knew it was you." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do. You gave me my life back. You gave me hope, so thank you. Thank you for being the kind of person who doesn't just take care of himself, who remembers what it's like to struggle." She hugged him and walked away. Marcus stood there, overwhelmed. Over the past 6 months, he'd quietly helped dozens of people, paid medical bills, covered rent, funded small business loans, always anonymously, always through intermediaries. He hadn't wanted credit, hadn't wanted attention. He'd just wanted to ease suffering the way he wished someone had eased his. But somehow, people had figured it out. And now they knew. The secret was out. A young man approached next. Maybe 19, 20. "Mr. Monroe? I'm Daniel. I took your welding class last fall." "I remember. You were good. Natural talent." Daniel smiled. "I got a job because of that class. A real job. Union benefits, pension. I start next week. My mom cried when I told her. We've been on food stamps my whole life, and now I'm going to be able to help her, help my sisters, because you taught me a skill, because you gave me a chance." "You did the work, Daniel. I just provided the tools." "You provided more than that. You provided belief. You treated me like I mattered, like my future mattered. That's worth more than the skill itself." Marcus shook his hand. "You're going to do great things. I'm proud of you." "I hope so. I want to build something that lasts, like you did." After Daniel walked away, Jack appeared at Marcus's side. "You okay?" "Yeah, just overwhelmed." "You should be proud." "I am, but I'm also scared." "Of what?" "Of losing this, of screwing it up, of letting people down." Jack put a hand on his shoulder. "You won't. You know how I know? Because you're asking those questions. People who screw things up don't worry about screwing things up. They just do whatever they want and assume it'll work out. You're different. You care. And that makes all the difference." They stood together, watching the community celebrate, watching hope spread like light through rooms that had been dark for decades. Riley found them, Owen in tow. "Dad, can we show people the garden?" "Of course, it's for everyone." They ran off, excited. Jack smiled. "Those kids are going to be okay. You know that, right?" "I hope so." "They are. Because they've got you, and because you're teaching them the most important lesson anyone can learn." "What's that?" "That pain doesn't have to be permanent, that suffering can be transformed, that loss can lead to something beautiful if you're brave enough to believe in it." Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. "Sarah would have liked you. She did like me. I was her favorite brother." They both laughed, and for a moment the grief that had lived in Marcus's chest for 3 years felt lighter. Not gone. It would never be gone, but manageable, breathable, shared. As evening fell, the crowd thinned. People headed home, tired but happy. Marcus walked through the empty rooms, turning off lights, checking doors. Jack had taken Riley and Owen for ice cream. Marcus had asked for an hour alone. He needed to walk the space, to feel it, to remember. In Sarah's garden, he sat on one of the benches and looked up at the stars. The mountains rose dark against the sky. The air smelled like roses and fresh earth. "I did it," he said quietly, speaking to his wife. "I kept my promise. I took care of them. I gave them something good. I hope you're proud. I hope wherever you are you can see what we built, what you inspired." The breeze picked up, rustling through the flowers. And maybe it was his imagination, maybe it was grief playing tricks, but Marcus swore he felt something, a warmth, a presence, a sense that he wasn't alone. "I miss you," he whispered. "Every single day. But I'm okay now. We're okay. And I'm going to keep building, keep helping, keep turning this darkness into light, because that's what you would have done. That's who you were. He sat there for a long time, just breathing, just being, just remembering that love didn't end when someone died. It transformed, it grew, it became something new, something eternal. Over the next year, the resort continued to evolve. Marcus added a community kitchen where people could learn to cook, a library filled with donated books, a therapy center offering free counseling, an art studio where kids could create without judgment. Every space was designed with intention, with care, with the understanding that people needed more than just jobs and money. They needed community. They needed purpose. They needed to feel valued. The town responded. Blue Hollow, once dying, now thrived. New families moved in. Property values rose. The school district expanded. Businesses flourished. And at the center of it all stood the resort. Not as a symbol of one man's wealth, but as proof of what a community could accomplish when people cared for each other. Marcus never remarried, never even dated. Some nights he was lonely. Some mornings he woke up reaching for Sarah and finding only empty space. But he'd made peace with it. His life wasn't about romantic love anymore. It was about a different kind of love, broader, deeper, more transformative. Riley graduated high school at the top of her class, got a full scholarship to college, wanted to study architecture, to build spaces that healed people. Owen, now in middle school, had started writing stories, real ones, published in the school paper, talked about becoming an author someday. Marcus watched them grow with pride and heartbreak. They were becoming adults, becoming their own people. And while part of him wanted to freeze time, to keep them small and safe forever, he knew better. Growth meant letting go, and letting go was the hardest, most important work of love. On the 3rd anniversary of the resort's opening, Marcus stood in the lobby surrounded by hundreds of people. The place was packed. Not for a celebration, though there was plenty to celebrate, but for an announcement. Agent Fisher had called 2 weeks earlier. They'd found Vincent Mallory, caught him trying to cross the border from Argentina into Chile. Extradition was in process. Within months, he'd stand trial for a dozen federal charges. The Mallory criminal enterprise, 3 generations in the making, was finally, truly finished. The news had spread through Blue Hollow like wildfire. People wanted to thank Marcus, wanted to celebrate justice. But Marcus had asked for something different. "I don't want a celebration," he'd told the mayor. "I want a remembrance for everyone who suffered, everyone who lost something to greed and violence. I want us to remember them, to honor them, to commit to being better." So they'd created a memorial. In the lobby, a wall of names, victims of the Mallory organization over decades, people who'd lost money, homes, lives, each name carefully researched, each story honored. And at the unveiling, Marcus spoke again. "Justice delayed is still justice," he said. "But justice achieved doesn't bring back what was lost. These names represent real people, real suffering, real families torn apart by greed. We can't undo what happened to them, but we can remember. And we can commit to building a world where it's harder for people like Vincent Mallory to thrive, where communities are strong enough to resist corruption, where people choose compassion over profit, where love wins." The crowd was silent. Then someone started clapping, slowly at first, then others joined, until the entire room thundered with applause, not for Marcus, but for the commitment, for the choice to turn tragedy into transformation. That night, long after everyone had gone home, Marcus sat on the porch with Riley and Owen. They were drinking hot chocolate, watching the stars. "Dad?" Owen asked. "Yeah, buddy?" "Do you think Mom knows about everything we did?" Marcus smiled. "I think she knows, and I think she's proud." "I miss her," Owen said quietly. "Me too," Riley added. "Every day," Marcus agreed. "But missing her is okay. It means we loved her. And that love doesn't disappear just because she's gone. It stays with us. It guides us. It makes us better. They sat in comfortable silence. Then Riley said, "I've been thinking about what I want to do after college." "Yeah?" "I want to come back here, help run this place, expand it, make it even bigger." Marcus felt his heart swell. "You don't have to do that. You should chase your own dreams." "This is my dream, building things that help people, creating spaces that heal. That's what I want, what you and Mum taught me to want." "Me too," Owen chimed in. "When I'm older, I want to work here, maybe teach kids to write, to tell their stories." Marcus pulled them both close. "You two are the best thing I ever built, you know that?" They hugged him tight, and in that moment, Marcus realized he'd done it. He'd kept every promise. He'd given his kids a future. He'd honored Sarah's memory. He'd transformed darkness into light. He'd turned $275 million from a criminal's vault into something that mattered, into something good, into legacy. The final court settlement came through 2 years later. The government seized what remained of the Mallory assets. Marcus was awarded an additional $8 million as a federal witness, but by then, money had stopped meaning what it used to. It was just a tool, a means to an end. He created a foundation, the Sarah Monroe Foundation for Community Healing, dedicated it to helping struggling families across Colorado, gave it an endowment of $15 million, hired a staff, built partnerships with other organizations. Within 5 years, the foundation had helped over 3,000 families, paid medical bills, prevented foreclosures, funded education, provided mental health services, and every single check sent out included a note. "This gift comes with no strings, only hope. May it help you the way kindness once helped us." Marcus never signed the notes, never took credit. The foundation was Sarah's. The legacy was hers. He was just the steward, just the man who'd been given a chance and chosen to share it. By the time Marcus turned 50, Pinecrest Community Center had become a model replicated in 6 other towns. The workshops trained over 500 people annually. The counseling center served 1,000 families. The guest rooms housed anyone who needed refuge. And Blue Hollow, the dying mountain town, had become a destination, not for tourists, but for people seeking something real, something meaningful, something built on community rather than consumption. Marcus's hair had gone grey, his hands were more scarred, his back hurt on cold mornings, but he was happy, truly, deeply happy, in a way he'd never imagined being after Sarah died. Riley, now 24, ran the foundation. Owen, 20, taught creative writing at the center and had published his first book, a collection of stories about found family and chosen purpose. And Marcus, he spent his days doing what he loved, building, teaching, listening, helping. One morning, he found a letter slipped under his office door. No return address, just his name in careful handwriting. He opened it. Inside was a single page. "Dear Mr. Monroe, you don't know me, but you saved my life. 5 years ago, I was homeless, addicted, had lost my kids, wanted to die. I ended up at your center because someone said they'd give me a bed and a meal with no questions. I stayed, took the recovery program, learned woodworking, slowly put my life back together. Today, I have a job, an apartment, and I just got visitation rights with my daughters. I haven't touched drugs in 4 years, and it's because someone believed I was worth saving. Because you built a place where broken people could heal. I don't have money to donate. I don't have influence to offer, but I wanted you to know. You changed my life. You gave me hope, and that hope saved me. Thank you. Sincerely, a grateful soul." Marcus read the letter 3 times, then he folded it carefully and placed it in a box he kept in his desk. The box was full of letters like this, hundreds of them, each one a story, each one a life changed. Each one proof that the choice he'd made that night in the vault, the choice to share rather than hoard, to give rather than keep, had mattered. That afternoon, he walked through Sarah's garden. The roses were in full bloom. The fountain sparkled in the sunlight. Families wandered the paths. Children laughed. And Marcus stood in the center of it all and felt something profound. Gratitude. Not for the money, not for the discovery, but for the journey, for the transformation, for the chance to turn his greatest loss into his greatest gift. "We did good, Sarah," he whispered. "We built something that lasts, something that matters, something that's bigger than both of us." The breeze carried his words away, and somewhere in the mountains, in the spaces between grief and healing, Marcus knew she heard him, knew she was proud, knew that love, real love, never dies. It just transforms into something new, something eternal, something that builds rather than destroys. And as the sun began to set over the Colorado peaks, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple, Marcus Monroe, the widowed father who'd once bought an abandoned resort for $800 and found $275 million inside, understood the truth. The real treasure hadn't been in the vault. It had been in the choice. The choice to share, to build, to heal, to honor the woman he loved by becoming the man she'd believed he could be. And that choice had changed everything. Not just for him, but for hundreds of people, for an entire community, for a legacy that would outlive them all. Because in the end, the only things that matter are the things you give away. The only wealth that lasts is the wealth you share. And the only legacy worth leaving is one that makes the world a little bit brighter than you found it. Anyone can change the world if they're willing to share their blessings, remember their struggles, and choose compassion over greed. As Marcus stood watching another sunset paint the sky over Pinecrest Community Center, he wasn't thinking about the money he'd found, or the danger he'd faced, or even the criminal he'd helped put away. He was thinking about the single mother who'd just gotten her nursing degree through their scholarship program, about the veteran who'd found peace in the woodworking shop, about the teenager who'd discovered she could code and was now headed to college with a full ride. He was thinking about Riley, brilliant and compassionate, running a foundation that changed lives daily, about Owen, sensitive and creative, teaching others to find their voice through storytelling. And he was thinking about Sarah, who'd whispered in her final days, "Make sure they know love wins." She'd been right all along. Love did win. It just took him a while to understand what that meant. Because winning wasn't about defeating enemies or protecting treasure or even achieving justice. Winning was about waking up every morning and choosing to build rather than destroy, to share rather than hoard, to love rather than fear. The widowed father who'd walked into an abandoned resort had become something he never expected. Not a millionaire, though technically he was. Not a hero, though some called him that. But a builder, a bridge between suffering and healing. A living reminder that the darkest moments could birth the brightest futures if you were brave enough to believe. And now, as the last light faded and the first stars appeared, Marcus Monroe walked back inside his creation, past the names of victims turned into memories, past the workshops humming with purpose, past the guest rooms offering refuge, past Sarah's garden growing eternal. He locked the doors, turned off the lights, and headed home to his kids. Because in the end, that was what mattered most. Not the fortune he'd found, but the family he'd protected. Not the building he'd restored, but the community he'd helped heal. Not the past he'd uncovered, but the future he'd helped create. And tomorrow, he'd wake up and do it all again. Because that's what love does. It keeps building, it keeps growing, it keeps winning. The end. Up next, 2 more powerful stories that will move your soul and remind you why hope never dies. Click now to keep the journey going. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you believe in second chances, transformed pain, and the power of one person to change everything.